Okay, so I'm a calligrapher, which always draws a very interesting response from people. Either they don't know what it is, or they can't quite believe that you can make any money from doing it, which is sort of true. Anyway, so as a calligrapher, I have a very particular job in that my job is to write things beautifully. And I think it's a very moving, very human thing that people still want things handwritten in our super automated, super efficient day and age. And technically, a printer could do what I do in 3 seconds with less costs, with fewer materials, and much quicker. But people still want things handwritten to commemorate, to celebrate, to remember things that have been important for them. So weddings, the birth of a baby, baptisms, celebrations of any kind. So that is the bread and butter of my job. And I think being an artist who is Christian, this makes the foundation of my job a very easy one to connect to God and to connect to the world, to sanctify. Very easy in that it's a very human job. I'm in contact with people all the time, and obviously when people ask me to do things, I want to know, what's the context? What's the context of this baby who's been born, or when are you getting married? Where are you getting married? How many guests have you got? And what's the feel of the writing that you want to have? So getting those little details about people helps me to pray for them, definitely, one thing. Professionally, to be as professional as I can about the output that I produce, and obviously to sanctify that work from within. Actually, that's a bit of a challenge, I think. Everyone has this idea about artists that they are a little bit all over the place, that they're bad at organising, that they get locked into their artistic world and find it hard to come out. I think that's a fairly fair stereotype to have with most people. It certainly is with me. But that, for me, is part of finding God in my daily work. So I have deadlines, I have clients who need things delivered at a certain quality, at a certain time. So out of respect for them, I do my absolute best to do that. But for me, that's also an insight into how I can find God in my daily life as an artist. So it's a huge struggle for me to sit down and start working at a particular time. But that struggle is really valuable, because that is where I can find God. And there are better days and there are worse days, and there are days where I will be working at 2 a.m. because I didn't organise myself very well, or my pen just won't behave. That's just part of the human story. I think that's the ups and downs of being an artist. But what I do love about being a Christian and an artist is that has a divine context. If you allow it, it can have a divine context where you can connect to God in those little struggles. A big part of my work, and basically 95% of my custom, comes from my presence on Instagram. So I don't have a website yet. So all of my work is basically done on Instagram, and that is a joy as much as it is a challenge. Everybody has Instagram, so if you have a platform presence, then it means that you are basically in everybody's pocket, which is great. And it also means that people can find you very quickly. So people find me via Instagram very, very quickly, and that's fantastic for me. Part of the challenges are that I have to film, document everything myself, which is a bit of a pain when I'm trying to write things, and I have to think about the angle of my camera. And I live in London, and the light is terrible because we don't know what the sun looks like most of the time, and all of these little challenges. Having presence on social media and being very aware of the image that's part of my brand. So if you come to the Girl in the Ink Studios to ask me for calligraphy or painting, which is something I also do, you should be able to see from my Instagram, because it is my portfolio. It's also my presentation of myself as an artist. So you should really be able to tell the kind of person I am, as well as the type of artist I am, from the images that I post on social media. So there's one story that I have of a client who approached me and clearly hadn't looked at my Instagram. So my Instagram is very kind of bright, it's quite colourful. and there's a certain aesthetic about it because I have a style as an artist, but also my content is, I'd say, pretty wholesome. I'm a Christian. What I want to do is I want to glorify God, and I want to dignify the human person, both the viewer, the client, as well as myself as an artist. So there are certain jobs that I don't take on. And this client, I think, hadn't quite understood that from my portfolio. So it was a restaurant, quite a big restaurant chain in the UK. They approached me to paint a mural on the walls of their restaurant and to redesign a matching set of illustrations for their menus. This was a big job. Like this had dollar in it. And as an artist who relies on the amount that her clients pay her, this was like, oh, yeah, but this is great. And this is a big name restaurant, like, I'm very excited about this. But then I read the brief. I asked, what is it that you want me to do? And I read the brief, and then I realized that what they were asking me to do was very in line with their brand, but not in line with me as an artist and as a person and as a Christian, as somebody who wants to dignify the human person and to reflect that love of God in the things that I do. So it was a bit of a painful moment because I had to decline, and I thought it was only fair to give a reason why I was declining and to suggest artists whose style probably aligned a bit more with the brand. So yeah, I let go of a big commission there, but I was very at peace with that decision because I knew that, well, money isn't everything. Money isn't everything. My integrity as a person who tries to live her faith, and that aligns with my artistic style, that integrity is more important to me. So that was a bit of a struggle. It's happened a couple of times in my career, but I think those small things do make a difference, and I hope those clients understood. Generally speaking, people are very respectful of my preferences, my moral preferences. So that's okay. But yeah, it's an interesting job being an artist. So the story of how I became a calligrapher is it's a bit of a funny one because or maybe it's a more common one than I think. I'm not really sure. I haven't often asked how artists got into their particular art field. For me, it was by accident, purely by accident. I mean, I was a full-time teacher at the time, and for those listening who are in education, you know how tough a job it is. Really loved it, but it was a tough job, and I needed to get to have a balancing factor in my life that would make me more human. That would balance out the stresses, the joys, and the stresses of teaching. So I decided, well, okay, let's look at what's out there. So Instagram at that time, this was 2014, had launched and was really gaining traction as the social media, the visual social media platform. So I was on Instagram and I was just having a look, and at that time, modern calligraphy was enjoying a big boom, like its first kind of big boom popularity. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, that looks like a relatively cheap hobby. You just need a pen, right? It looks easy, as in, the people I was watching, they were just doing these really easy loops and beautiful writing. I found out very quickly it's not that easy, but anyway, I saw what they were doing and I thought, yeah, this looks relaxing. This looks like something I could enjoy doing. So I was watching all of these amazing calligraphers on Instagram, and I was basically just copying what they were doing. And that was the beginning. I got hooked. I got completely hooked. This is one of the beauties of art, I think, when you are in the creative process. No matter how good the output is, if you're in the artistic creative process, you really do get locked in. You get into the zone of focusing on that one thing that you're doing, bringing beauty out of the page. Sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's not, but the creative process is really where it's at. And I just couldn't stop doing it. And I think, this is the same for everything. The more you do something, the more time and attention and care you put into one thing, the better you get at it. It's just, that's the way it works. That's the way life works, right? It's the same with everything. So if you have the patience and perseverance to keep getting better at that thing, to keep practicing, then eventually you will, as I did, get to the stage where I was like, people are paying me to do this. People are paying me to do this. Maybe I enjoy it, they enjoy it, they seem to think this is worth paying for. I'm getting to meet lots of really fun people. I get to contribute to these really wonderful human events, like weddings, like brand launches, like writing out the wedding vows of a bride and groom, or handwriting a special message to somebody's mum on Mother's Day. That's such a wonderful combination of things. So eventually my hobby became a side hustle, and the side hustle is now the main hustle. So it really did start by accident, but I suppose there is a lot of providence in that pathway as well. You kind of just have to follow your heart, your skill set, and also the lights that God gives you in your path. And the other thing is, it's a very easy thing to scale down and scale up. So if you're somebody who has an artistic passion of some kind, and you're not sure whether to take it into a bigger space, like a professional space, I get a lot of questions about that. All I would say is, you have the flexibility to scale it up and down as much as you want. And that's what happened with me. I've been running the studio for 8 years, but it only really became the main hustle very recently. So up until that point, it was just running itself in little pockets as a side hustle, you know. And I enjoyed it just as much then as I am enjoying it now.